it's for the committee to take evidence on two proposed cross-party groups. The first group we have to consider today is the proposed CPG on autism, and I'd like to welcome Graham Day, MSP, to the meeting. Graham is the deputy convener of the group, and I'd like to invite Graham to make an opening statement about the purpose of the group.
Thank you, convener, and good morning. I think there's been a feeling for some time in the autism community, and perhaps also amongst MSPs, that the lack of an autism cross-party group in the Parliament was a missed opportunity to raise awareness of autism issues. I'm conscious I think there was one 2 parliaments ago. There are around 58,000 people in Scotland, young people and adults, that are identified as having autism, plus more than 174,000 family members and carers. Personally, I suspect the numbers are considerably higher than that in reality. So I think there's a clear constituency there, as it were, to have the interests of highlighted. The Scottish Government strategy on autism identifies autism as a national priority. However, I think as all of us as MSPs from our surgery caseload, I suspect, would recognise that in reality very often the needs of this group are not being adequately met at the moment. So granted the committee's approval today, the cross-party group will seek to bring together individuals, organisations and parliamentarians who have a shared interest in this area to promote the interests of autistic people, their families and their carers at the Parliament, and obviously with a view to influencing Scottish Government policy and improving the lives of this group. As members will be aware, autism is often diagnosed alongside other conditions, some of which are currently the subject of a dedicated cross-party group at the Parliament. For example, there are presently CPGs on dyslexia, epilepsy, mental health and learning disability. It will be the case that these CPGs undertake work that will be relevant to autistic people, absolutely. However, as stated in the Scottish Strategy for Autism, autistic people, and I quote, have a unique set of conditions which will not necessarily fall within the categories of learning disabilities or mental health, although these conditions may be present. So it's because of the fact that the needs arising from autism are distinct and are currently not being met that a standalone CPG on autism we feel is required, although of course where opportunities to work collaboratively with other CPGs will be explored. It's proposed that the CPG on autism will take place quarterly. Each session would be an hour and a half to 2 hours long. In this time the group would discuss up to 2 topics at each CPG meeting. In the first 12 months, it's proposed that the group will discuss mental health, education, diagnosis and service provision. Thank you, convener.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Do members have any questions? Alexander.
Thank you, convener. I think it's very good that you identify that there may well be some crossover because autism has been seen as a learning disability, but I think that you've given us a good example of why it should be a standalone, and I would concur with that. But can I maybe ask about some examples of joint work that you may choose to do with other CPGs that would then give you that opportunity to develop and then get your own platform going forward?
I think we're very open-minded on that. I think it's really it's going to be up to the group to identify areas of cooperation. I wouldn't want to prejudge what those participating in the group would perhaps see as being important. There are some fairly obvious things that strike me, but I'd be guided by what the membership felt. But absolutely, we've seen good examples in the Parliament of cross-party groups working together. And I think that's absolutely the way forward for this one if you approve it.
Thank you, Convener.
Elaine.
Thank you, convener. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Day. Could I ask you about the fact that there's no individual members listed on your initial application for the group? The reason I want to ask about that is you are indeed right, there was a previous autism cross-party group. Indeed, I was coincidentally the convener of it when it was disbanded. Partly that was due to the parliamentary nature of the cross-party group being lost. And I think, though, under the new rules that the Parliament has now, then that would probably be less of an issue. But I did want to just ask you, do you intend to have individual members, or are you just going to have MSPs and organisations?
I think that's a really good question, because I am aware of previous issues around a CPG. And what I would say in relation to that, if I can answer that point, is yes, the rules have changed, but I think also there is opportunity. I think some CPGs have a code of conduct around how they operate, and I think that's perhaps an area we would consider. In terms of individuals, I think that's something, again, that will be up to the group to decide if you approve it. You're right, there are no individuals listed at the moment, but this is about reaching out to as many people as we can. But I would give you the assurance that we will be circumspect in how the group is taken forward.
If I might just comment, Convener, slightly further, I think sometimes it's just that cross-party groups can become confused with public meetings and the parliamentary nature of them, and that can cause difficulty. So I think that's why I've asked that question, really.
Yes, and I would say to your answer that we are acutely aware of that possibility and mindful of how we might address that issue going forward with your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any other questions? No. Thank you for coming along today, Mr. Day. We will consider approval of the cross-party group in private session further on in the meeting, and we'll let you know in due course.
Thank you very much.
And I'll suspend briefly to allow witnesses to change.